And hello everyone, and welcome back to the Pumpkin Copter Cast, the only video game show. So today I'm joined by Andrew of the digital indie game zine Indiepocalypse.
Hello, that's me. I'm Andrew. That I am the editor and curator of that thing you just mentioned. That obsessively, excessively long name zine.
Yeah. So we'll start things off with an introduction of you.
All right, so I'm Andrew. I created Indiepocalypse, and occasionally I have made games, and maybe I will again. And I don't know. I like to make games. I like games, and this is kind of like a long exploration of that idea.
Okay. And how did you first discover video games?
I don't remember. I was a child, and they were purchased for me, and then I liked them. And I did not come to them in a point in life when I had you know, the personal decision making capabilities to buy them myself. They were just a constant fixture in my life. Fixture sounds a little dependent, a little extreme, but you get the idea.
Yeah. And what would you say is your favorite game and or games growing up?
I don't know. I'm generally very bad at favorites of like everything, especially. You know what? It's StarCraft. It was StarCraft. I
Okay.
played that and Brood War like obsessively, or like the custom maps in those games. It's probably what I played like the most of anything else. I kind of sometimes still think about it.
Okay. And what would you say is your favorite game and or games now?
Um, I don't know. I don't think. Once again, you've caught me with all these favorite questions. I'm very bad at favorites. I don't really have any favorites. That's just like I don't know. At some point in my life I flipped like a switch or something, and I stopped textualizing things in that way, and I don't know how to go back to it. And pressed for that question, I don't know how to answer it. I really I don't know. Trying to think of. I'm trying to be very contemporary and think of what is like the best game I played. That is, the most recent best game I played, and I can't think of what video games are. Um, I'm going to say not applicable. I
Okay.
do not have favorites.
And so if
Wait, does
uh
does Magic the Gathering count as a video game?
who
There's a
knows?
digital version of it, and that's what I play. That is my for all the problems of like digital and non-digital card games, monetization, and all of that. That is my ideal game because it's bloated and janky, and it just keeps getting bigger, and it's like kind of imbalanced in so many ways. And the idea of some just like a card game that exists for decades that constantly builds on itself is chaotic, and it's a weird mixture of design, and I love it.
Okay.
Mod- Modern digital card games are too clean. You can balance something like Hearthstone or Runeterra. You can't patch a physical card, so all you can do is ban them.
uh, yeah. So if the world was currently in like a real life almost but not quite zombie apocalypse and things like conventions were a thing that could happen, and Indiepocalypse had a booth of some sort and someone was walking by it, what would be the elevator pitch you'd give to like a passersby?
It is a monthly collection of indie games where the developers get paid. And it shows the breadth and depth of independent games, I think, is my short pitch version if I were to say something for like repeatedly for 8 hours on a convention floor.
Okay.
Ideally, I would just give somebody one of the zines and let them look through it and go, "This is what it is. Flip through one of these. These are all games." Because there's no way I could possibly demo 140 games or something easily. Some can't be demoed. They're like tabletop games, and I can't just say, "Oh, find 4 friends, sit down, let's play this hour-long game real quick."
All right then. And how was Indiepocalypse first formed?
Well, I was making games, and I was thinking, well, the games that I like making, I didn't see like a clear way to make them, but also make money. Like you have to like even if you are like a well-established indie darling, if you're making things outside of the traditional commercial space, you're not making that much money, I don't think. And that's like best case scenario. And I was not the best case scenario, so I decided that I would just make the entire market that I wanted. I would just make it myself through brute force. And so I decided, well, I'll just start making this anthology because anthologies are common. They're easy to understand. They are, I have to frame them as bundles for gamers because they don't know what an anthology is. If you have to, like, oh, is it themed? Well, it's not themed, but it's a bundle of things, I guess. But it's also a zine. In my heart, I call it a zine, but there's also like a traditional, what you would think of as a zine with it. And I don't know. There's a lot of confusing language around it, but you have to kind of understand what I'm thinking in order to fully just like I just keep saying the different words until I find the one that clicks with the person.
All right then. And hey, you answered it a bit already, but how was Indiepocalypse first formed?
Well, it was initially I brought it to PAX East as like I I had someone buy an extra pass for me, and I just kind of like went to the show, and I just did it by cold emailing. Because originally I was gonna have it be themed, and the first theme was all games made in Massachusetts, and that involved me going to like global game jam sites, like the physical, like looking up the physical sites on their webpage and just like cold emailing every developer I could find on there until I got 10 that said yes, which was a long process. And then from there, I just started throwing it up on an itch page, like as a game jam, and I've just been helping it every month where I can or need to give it a little help still, and working from there.
All right then. What would you say is Indiepocalypse's overall goal? Like, what's the like? Is just continuing to give attention and everything to indie developers, or
So, in addition to all of that, I don't know if you're talking and waiting for me or want me to just keep going, but
oh,
I
sorry.
will just keep going instead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, yes, hello.
Okay. Definite nothing. Technical issues didn't just happen.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So anyway, what would you say is the Indiepocalypse's overall goal?
I think my goal is, well, starting off, I had that goal of just like making the space, and I now I still want to sort of make a space where you for smaller, shorter, less commercially conventional, artistic, outsider space, or create a space in indie games that you can see in other spaces
Mm-hmm.
like music or like indie. I think a lot of like when I go to like an indie comic show, I've gone to Mice a couple times or TCAF a few times, and it's like people will pay like $15 for a 20-page comic. And it's like, why can't you pay like $15 for like an hour-long game? You know, the stuff takes time to make, and I think people will. You just need to cultivate that whole community around that, a community that is like completely indifferent to mainstream, whether it's because they just don't like it, or just honestly just don't care about it. Like I don't pay too much attention to mainstream much of anything, but not out of like disdain. It's just like I'm not interested. I have only so much time in my day, and there's plenty of other stuff, and I don't view things in terms of like how popular it is, because I also have like no interest in joining whatever being parts of discourses or conversations, so that is never a motivating factor for me. So I just kind of like things I like, and sometimes they're new, and sometimes they're old, sometimes they're super popular, sometimes nobody's heard of them. And I want to help make a space in games where it's like not every game has to enter the game conversation, and people can just like exist in their own little world.
Okay.
It, it's like trading the whole, instead of like trading that one bitsy dollar back and forth, maybe we can trade like start trading 100 bitsy dollars back and forth.
All right then. And like you mentioned earlier that you just cold email as all the developers you can until you get like the amount of responses you need. But is there like any other ways you reach out to developers that you think would be a good fit for indie?
Oh, well, at this point, I only do that for two per issue. I've been getting enough submissions like organically through an itch jam page that I
Mm-hmm.
only really personally choose two to like to help keep the zine in a certain direction or to like fill gaps that hadn't been filled previously. Just kind of like the personal curatorial touch. But otherwise, the other eight is generally just people submitting their games through the itch page, and I curate them and judge them and pick eight of them. And that's itch. Nope, I don't know what the itch URL is, but it's indiepocalypse.com/submit, and then people can just submit their games they already made.
Okay, and yeah, so how do you go about picking, which indie developers go like into a certain issue of the zine on a given month? Do you like consolidate them all like by theme or by genre, or do you just like pick as many different, types of games as you can?
It's kind of the last one. I try to make it so that it's like a always a variety of games,
Mm-hmm.
the best that I can, and not like too many of all the same style or too many games that feel too similar, even if they're would all be acceptable in the zine in that month. I try to like be like, oh, games can be a lot of things, which I guess is bad for marketing because it's like this weird smattering, and people like things to be a very clear. Here is our theme. Here is our, I don't know, our gimmick for that month, or that this is our production or issues gimmick. And I am like, I don't care. I want to just do a thing that's cool, and I want people to have interesting works in the zine. And so I just try and find the greatest variety that I can, and kind of like make it so that each zine, ideally somebody, in an ideal world, okay, in the idealist world, everybody likes everything, but in like my ideal, I think I would love it for there to be like two games that people really like connect with deeply, and a couple that they absolutely hate or like have no interest in, because I think
Huh. Really?
I like the idea of like not everything has to be for everybody, and it's perfectly fine to like not. I've seen people like reviews, people like, oh, I don't like this thing. I'm like, well, I love that thing, and like I've seen different reviews of people like some people love things and some people hate other things, or just like, oh, I don't get it, or oh, this is my favorite thing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think variety is good. I often think that like things that appeal to everybody and can, like very broadly appeal don't really deeply connect with many people in particular. Plenty of people like you know potato chip, but whose favorite food is a potato chip?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to find weird indie games that like will be somebody's like thing that they never realized existed or never realized would be their favorite thing. And I think sometimes to do that you have to like skew away from going broad and skew towards like more niche things and more very often like I don't know. I feel often personal, but not like personal in the
Mm-hmm.
way that we think
Mm-hmm.
of this game is personal because it speaks to my personal experience, but personal as it feels like it comes from a person.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right then. And yeah, so we move on to the final question of the interview, which everyone who's ever been on the show always understands perfectly.
Okay.
Andrew, in your opinion, is video games?
Never, not once.
All right then. And with that, we come to the conclusion of this particular episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast. I'd like to thank Andrew of Indiepocalypse for joining me and bringing some attention to this. And Andrew, if people have been listening to this are interested in the type of material that Indiepocalypse is providing, where could a person pick it up and buy like 1 or 5 of it?
Oh yeah, if you would like to buy all 12 issues, the 13th one's coming out next Friday. They come out the first Friday of every month, and that is indiepocalypse.com. Goes to my personal page, or just search Indiepocalypse on itch. I don't think you can search it on your search engine of choice by default. I don't think my SEO is good enough yet. But you'll get a bunch of articles about people talking about a thing that doesn't exist. But yeah, indiepocalypse.com will get you there. We get you where you need to go.
Alright then, yeah, indiepocalypse.com. If you like indies, if you like indies that, as Andrew has said throughout this interview, like kind of go against the grain a bit, yeah, pick it up. And if any of you at home have enjoyed listening to this and all of the not technical issues that have happened, you can like and subscribe and all that and hit the bell icon so you get notifications because everyone loves extra steps. And if for some reason after you're done giving Indiepocalypse money, you want to give me some money, you can go to patreon.com/thepumpkincoptercast, where for as little as $1 a month you can submit questions for me to use in future interviews. And I don't know, maybe, submit ideas for some, non-interview related episodes you'd like to see. And yeah, this has been the Pumpkin Copter Cast, and as I say at the end of every show, have a gourd day, everyone.
Goodbye.